Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show here on Channel 1 Television. Here on The Point of View, we pick the right topics, get the right guests, and ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We delve into a big controversial story. On the 6th of August, the U.S. federal court convicted Ghanaian American Kwaku Asante Berko on 3 counts of bribery in relation to the securing of emergency power agreements with the government of Ghana, bribes to the tune of millions of dollars paid by this person to Ghanaian officials. The Americans have convicted him. He's waiting sentencing in November. Tonight we'll break down what the American court found to give you the details of the offenses of this person. And then we'll speak to 2 energy experts on what this conviction means for the way we procure energy. Don't forget that it was the emergency power agreement between Ghana and AKSA Energy. And AKSA have become quite big in Ghana. We'll speak to some interesting energy experts on what this indictment and conviction means for our energy strategy going forward. All of these and more when we come back. Stay with us.
This July, get ready for stories that will make your heart race. From love and passion to secrets and lies that can ruin everything. Catch the sizzling episodes of Sins and Roses at 4 p.m, Domenica Monteiro at 5 p.m, Be My Sunshine at 6 p.m, and Avenida Brazil at 7 p.m, Central African Time. Only on Novelas Plus, Channel 134 on GoTV.
Why? What's wrong?
Paper jam.
Introducing Ghana's leading pay-as-you-copy photocopier leasing company. Lease an A4, A3, heavy-duty or production machine and pay for only the copies made or design your own payment plan. Simple and tietia. That's not all. Incredibly, toners, repairs, maintenance, follow-me printing, centralized tracking all come free of charge. Remember, financial prudence is the name of the game. Folks, forget about the expensive gimmicks and be smart. Join the hundreds of satisfied clients across all the 16 regions and every sector of the economy and save over 60% of your printing costs. Visit us at www.valexlease.com or call 0244 644048. Be prudent and lease a copier. Terms and conditions apply. Valex Lease is a wholly owned Ghanaian company. Valex Lease, affordable document management solutions.
Big game today as Ghana faces England.
You forgot the eggs.
And the whole nation is ready. Shot on target. Oh, what a save! Benjamin Asari flying for Ghana.
Politics is always safe.
Every day, in the moments we love, we rely on clean and safe water that flows from Polytank.
So tonight we'll first delve into what the New York court found in terms of the indictment and the conviction of Asante Kwaku, who's a Ghanaian American banker who was convicted for corruption in relation to U.S. law. Don't forget, there's always demand and supply side. So the law under which he was convicted is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which deals with the supply side of corruption. But there's a demand side, the recipient, and we'll deal with that later on. 52 years old, he was based in London, working for one of the world's biggest banks, Goldman Sachs. They were part owners of the Turkish, or they had investments in the Turkish energy company called AKSA. The offenses supposedly occurred between 2014 and 2017. And because he's Ghanaian American, it helps, right? So when a big company wants to get into the power sector, of course, Ghana in 2014 had Dumso. We needed emergency power. AKSA's business model was to provide that emergency power to developing countries. They needed somebody who, of course, being an American citizen, understood the ways of Wall Street and also the system of banking from New York. But because he's of Ghanaian heritage and has Ghanaian citizenship, the view is that he can help to push the deal through, of course, legally, through legal means, all right? Now, at the time these offenses were committed, he was not yet working for TOR. The TOR issue came up later in 2020 when the following government appointed him. But here are some key issues. So Goldman Sachs had approximately 60% of ownership of AKSA, and the amount in question was about $190 million in terms of a loan, with an LC of about $75 million. So it's a big deal, right? Goldman Sachs pulled out of the deal because they were not very happy with the way things were going. They saw some red flags, which red flags eventually would lead to a thorough investigation and the conviction of Kwaku Asante Berko. And the offense is that his access to Ghanaian officials, which he was supposed to use to push the deal through normally, he resorted to bribery, okay? Now, this is the short timeline of the person we're referring to. 2014, he was based in London. He was the executive director of the London division of Goldman Sachs. His job was to win businesses in Ghana. And the offense, particular in terms of the bribery, occurred in 2015 at the heat of the Dumso crisis when the government was trying to get power deals through. And then he left the bank in 2017, started cooperating with US officials. Indeed, prior to this 9-day trial, he had already agreed to make certain payments to the US authorities because they had started with a civil case against him before it became a criminal case. So there are three issues here. The company itself did their due diligence and realized that Asante Berko had not been truthful to their due diligence and audit teams, all right, or their compliance teams. Then there were civil cases brought against him, some of which he made payments to sort of, it's not necessarily an admission, but it's a settlement. And then they decided to take this up to the criminal side. All right, so he was arrested November 2022 at Heathrow in London. And then the British extradited him in 2024 to the Americans to face full trial in New York. And then on the 6th of August, he was convicted. So this is a short timeline of Kwaku's fall from grace to grass, all right? Now, there were three main counts that he conspired to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Because he's an American citizen, if an American company is doing business outside, it must do business by the book. And the Americans take a very strong view of this because even the company that benefited from the so-called bribery was not even an American company, which is a Turkish company, right? So that's another issue there. And then the substantive violation of the act, and then the monies paid also violated money laundering rules, all right? Now, it's important to know that, as I said, there's a supply side of corruption or bribery, and there's a demand side. The Americans have done their part, which looks at the conduct of their citizens outside. Now, the Ghana side has not yet been dealt with. So there are a lot of Ghanaian officials whose names have come up. We'll mention some of the names. Some of them have even responded in writing to the allegations. But the Ghanaian system has not done its investigation yet. This is very important to say. So the fact of a bribe being paid has been established. But who received the bribe has to also be taken through the Ghana process of proof, right? So we'll come back to what Ghana must do. But the Americans have enough information. The Ghanaians and the American government have a legal cooperation agreement where the Americans will share information with us. Indeed, the OSP say they cooperated and provided information to the Americans to do their side of the work. Later on, I'll show you what the Deputy Attorney General has said. He says they're also going to go into the matter. Okay. Now, let's take you back to 2015. We have four real levels of ratification or sort of executive function to make the deal go through. So this power agreement, it needs approval and signature of a minister of power under the instruction of the president. Cabinet needs to approve, Parliament needs to approve. The main company that will transmit the power, in this case Gridco, also needs to go through the agreement to agree that this plant or whatever system the people are bringing can connect to our power transmission. Don't forget, power is generated either at Kosombo or through a power plant, transmitted by Gridco, and then distributed by ECG. Now, at the end of that chain is PURC, which is the regulator of ECG, Gridco, VRA, and all these entities. Now, according to the Americans, these duties of these entities were discretionary duties. So it's not a normal thing they do. So it means that discretion can either be abused or not. That's where bribery comes in. Which means that you could have said, we don't like the agreement because it doesn't meet certain standards. We will not sign it. So what they are saying is that every one of these approvals being discretionary means that they don't qualify as a routine government action for which you can't bribe me. It's not like pushing paper. They can sit down and say, this is right, this is wrong. So a bribe can influence all four of these processes. The PURC's role, the Gridco role, Cabinet and Parliament's role, and then the executive through the ministry and the government role. This is part of the path they used to establish that bribes were paid, but they needed to establish this foundation. There are some entities mentioned. Now, when the Americans are, or the US court system is treating a matter, it knows every company involved by name. But in the indictment deposition or the information they put out, they list the entities by aliases. So they'll say government official 1, government official 2, senior official 3. I think you remember the Airbus case as well. This is to protect the identity of the people because they've not all been brought in to defend themselves. So you can't just say Bernard Avle. You can say senior journalist 1 because you want to be careful with people's identities within what you put in the public, but you can say it in court that the person is called Bernard Avle, all right? So you have the Turkish energy company called AKSA. The holding company usually is the company through which the business is done at the top end. But this is then there are a number of consulting companies. According to the system of what was found, these consulting companies were channels through which the bribes were paid so that it cannot be related to the company itself, right? So there's a Ghana consulting company, 2 of them, and then there's an employee of the consulting company and Mr. Berko. So these are the entities that the prosecutors felt or found channeled the monies, right? So you would notice that in the next few slides, you see Ghana Consulting Company 1 and 2 a lot. And they believe that Berko willingly created or knowingly and intentionally created these channels to avoid detection, okay? This is not a law class, but I need to go through this. Now, how the scheme unfolded. November 2014, Goldman Sachs and Berko begin exploring power plant opportunities. So when you have a crisis, international companies begin to circle. They are looking for who will buy their goods. Now, according to what the prosecutors found, $500,000 was initially paid to some officials in Ghana, and the Ghanaian delegation was flown to Turkey to look at the power plants, all right? They also say a $1.5 million invoice was sent for payment of illegal amounts outside of what the company would get for selling power. So we haven't even gotten to the power selling stage. By July of 2015, the emergency power agreement was ratified by our parliament. Now, it is alleged that some of the people who went on the trip were either MPs or power sector officials. They call them the power team. That, again, the Ghanaian side can find. So by August of 2015, so 11 years ago to the month, so this is pretty fast, right? From November of the previous year to less than a year of the next year, the emergency power agreement is executed. Another $250,000 is being reconciled. Again, for them, the way this money was shared showed clearly to them that these were bribes to be paid. And later on, we'll show you how that particular amount was paid. They found that the Turkish company had wired about $140,000 to Berko, the man in the center of the storm. All right? And then he's convicted in August, as we say. So, again, this is just a quick blowout of the key persons the court found involved. So they call 2 people co-conspirator 1 and 2. These are business people. Their names are not mentioned. Then there are Ghana officials 1 and 2 who are senior officials of the ministry. Now, all roads lead to the then Minister for Power, and I'll show him later on. And some advisor of his, whose name we don't have yet. But because the Ghana side has not been proven yet, All of these are people who have been mentioned as having benefited from a bribe, but have not been proved to have received it. These are very important points. There's also a relative of the then President Mahama, whose name is not mentioned, as the one who facilitated the initial deal. So it's like a key guy who says, okay, you have a power crisis. I know some guys in Turkey, they can supply you with power. Let's link them up, and then the people come through their financial guy, Berko, to do the deal. And then there's the role of members of parliament, the PURC, which is the entity that regulates the power sector, and then grid code staff. Okay, so these are the 4 key channels who were supposedly working with Berko to either distribute or benefit from the bribery. All right, and they then showed how the money flowed. This is not really necessary for us here, but it tells you the rigorous nature of the work they did. So basically, the Turkish company did not directly go and give money to a Ghanaian official. They went through consulting companies. There are a lot of consultants. Some are doing technical consultation, environmental impact assessment, all kinds of things. According to the prosecutors, these companies were set up deliberately to receive these monies. There's something they call beneficial ownership, which is why when a company is formed, you should know who owns the company. It's one of the ways we fight corruption, right? Because you can form a company for Bernard and Paco, but the company, you name it after Echo. And then, even though Bernard and Paco are the ones moving the strings, there's nothing linking them to the company. So this is a very important issue for beneficial ownership studies. And the monies were then sent and then reimbursed to the man who did the distribution, all right? And according to the prosecutors, at least $700,000 was found in traceable bribes. $700,000 there. Multiply that by 12 to know how much that is in Ghana cedis. And they are saying over $2 million was paid to the consulting entities in total, these guys. Whether all of this was for work done or just for own transmission to officials, not all of this is clear, but they can confirm that at least this amount was paid in bribes, all right? There's a lot of information here. Examples are given. For example, April 14, $500,000. The Turkish company paid it to the Ghana consulting company. And then this includes a $250,000 earmarked to be paid as part payment to a senior official at the Ministry of Power. $5,000 each given to 5 officials, so that's $25,000. This is like pocket money when they were in Turkey to do the visitation and to check. So while they were working for the state, the company was also supposedly paying them. We don't know who the identity of these 5 are, but this the government or the AG or the OSP can find. And then another $1.5 million invoice. Turkish company again pays to the Ghana consulting company. And these are all traceable, which is why we say follow the money. Digital payments are always the best. If you bring money in a cocoa sack, we can't know you paid. But when you transfer it, we can always find it. And this is 11 years before. How serious some people take corruption, right? And another $75,000 paid to Berko to reimburse him for payments he made again to bribe people. So you'll be paid back for what he did. So the Turkish company will not directly pay to him, but pay through the consulting. What consulting they are doing, the court will show us. Another $50,000 he transferred. So he himself paid $50,000 to his US bank account, and they saw that. All right. Now, the $250,000. So there was a whole confusion around $250,000 that Berko wanted reimbursed, and he had to explain how he shared it for them to say you actually did spend the money. He spent $5,000 on visas, allegedly paid $20,000 to PURC officials who are supposed to be regulating the sector and to make sure the transaction. PURC are the guys who approve tariffs for you to pay, all right, whether it's power tariffs or fuel tariffs. Their job is to be defending us, to make sure that the deal is kosher. Some officials, they're not named, are receiving $20,000. Another official from the power team, we don't know whether it's ministry or agency, received some money, $25,000. Gridco engineers also received $20,000. So we need to find out which Gridco engineer was involved and who took that money. Another $30,000 of that $250,000. So this is not the only amount paid, but of the $250,000, again, the courts was proving that at least $700,000 was paid in bribes. And of that $700,000, the $250,000, this is how it was distributed. $30,000 to Parliament. Because the committee that is in charge of these transactions, the Energy Committee, it is assumed that they are the people who benefited. We don't know whether it was all of them or some of them or none of them. That will be proved if our investigators do their job. And then, of course, the man himself was given $35,000 for this round of the $250,000. And then the Turkish travel itself cost them another $45,000. And this is $5,000 as well. And because of this dispute, because of the back and forth, the Turkish company paid $140,000 to Berko and his account, all right? And they also use specific words in emails and communications. Sometimes they use a coded language. It says one of the MPs is waiting for the holy rain, not the money. You didn't want to say they are waiting for the cash. The other issue is that when you work for a company like Goldman Sachs, when you are working in official capacity, you must send emails through your official email channel. Now, the prosecutor said this gentleman knew that some of the things he was doing was wrong, so he used his personal email, right? His personal email to send those emails because he wanted to avoid the detection by the compliance team, and all of this came up in court. So some of the specific quotes, all right? For example, one of the 4 co-conspirators told Berko that you need to arrange the first $500,000 urgently. I'm going to part with $250K to Ghana Official 1. So you need to arrange the $500,000 quickly. Another one says money was ready and instructed payment to Ghana Official. Look at August 28, 2015. Parliament was all paid by Asante, approximately $46,000. That I know of. Somebody's statement that they found within the investigation. All right. Now, so these are the 3 counts. Conspiracy to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So the lawyers will always tell you that before you kill somebody, the intention to kill is also there. All right. So the conspiracy is as important as the offense itself. You plan to do it. That's why you did it. So the conspiracy is a crime, substantive action, and then how you did it. You also money laundered to do it. So these are the 3 main charges. And he was found guilty on all 3. Now, even though it was a 9-day trial, the investigation began long before this. So don't think that he just did 9 days of trial. Because even by 2024, when he was extradited, they had started filing some of their, they call it depositions, or some of the people, they have their preliminary filings, all right? Now, he will be convicted in November. He will be sentenced, forgive me, in November. And per the law he was convicted by, he could spend 30 years in prison. This was a jury verdict, by the way, all right? This is for lawyers. I'm not sure I want to get into all of this. But they used, this is important for our anti-corruption fight because emails between Berko and the co-conspirators, right? Then they also showed wire records, bank transfers. Maybe they'll say we are paying money to a consultant for a job done. But when that money reaches, how it's distributed is also followed. So you can lose iCloud and device extractions, digital forensics, all right? And we have institutions in Ghana that can do all of this. Yoko can do this. FIC can do this. So if we want to also check our receiving side, they've given us a lot of, and there's nothing here that our officials can do if they want to find out who took the bribes, all right? And then the defense also, of course, they use some of the communication from their defendant to sort of justify that he was actually doing legitimate business. And they said you can't use your own testimony in that sense. It is hearsay. Basically, the defense collapsed, right? And they also said that these were routine payments and not bribes. But they couldn't prove it. The court preempted this and showed evidence to suggest that this was also not true. So the defense could not defend Berko's case, all right? And then, of course, this is a lot of legal, thank you, Richard Sky, thank you, Hansen Ajima and Fred Jabano. You are legal people. But this is important for us because the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is for American citizens and companies and their conduct abroad. So, of course, Berko is American Ghanaian. So he qualifies and falls in. If you're a foreigner, there's a different law they'll use, all right? And then the corrupt intent, the mens rea, there was an intention to do the thing. You know, that's very important. Then they also confirmed that the money was received by foreign officials. So these energy ministry people, power ministry people, Gridco and all these people were obviously from a different country, all right? And then they also showed that U.S. entities were used to do these transactions. So these are all technical things the court uses. So basically, he could face 30 years, 9 days of trial. So now, the Americans have established that the guy paid bribes. All right? What does that mean for Ghana? I'll come to that shortly. What does that mean for Ghana? Now, Asante Berko has been convicted, but who are the people involved on the Ghana side? There's a so-called Ghana Official 1 and Ghana Official 2. All right. From the documents we read, this Ghana Official 1 and 2 are definitely people who work in the power ministry at the time. All right. And Dr. Kwabena Donko was obviously the Minister of Power at the time. And his lawyers have sent a statement. Indeed, he made a Facebook post over the weekend, I think the day after this issue came up, I think on Friday. I'm going to read that. And then he also instructs his lawyers to issue a statement that clearly delineates what he knows about this, which is why we are saying that the guy has been convicted under U.S. law. So Berko's guilt is not in doubt. This does not yet establish criminal liability for any Ghanaian official here. That has also to be proved. So because it's a system. The reason we went through all this is that the Americans used a system to prove that the guy paid the bribe. Okay. So we must also use a system to prove that the guy collected the bribe. But what we know is that for every demand, there's a supply. Demand and supply. Somebody received the money, but who did, how much, and when, we have to establish using our own criminal code, which is why we are proceeding very cautiously here. All right. So as the team is saying, this does not itself establish criminal liability for any person, but it raises a lot of questions for the Ghanaian authorities to answer. All right. So there's a basic maxim of law which Ghana also applies. You are innocent until proven guilty before a competent court of jurisdiction, which is why I also don't want to do trial by media. So you can't put Bernard's picture and say, this is the thief. Or the police arrest you, say you've stolen something, and they put you on scene and say you were a thief. You haven't been proven to be a thief yet. You are a suspect. Now, these guys have not yet been charged as well. So basically, you are investigated, you are charged, you are tried, you defend yourself, you are convicted, and then you are sentenced. Let me go through this. So if they say Bernard has done something wrong, he has to be investigated, whether by Iyoko or whoever. If the investigator sends the docket to the Attorney General, I say, based on the investigation, I believe he has a case to answer. So I charge you. Then I say, no, I'm not a thief. I found the money in my house. When you are charged, what do you have to do next? You have to open your defense. You are tried through a process. And then if the court agrees that you actually are a thief beyond reasonable doubt because you took the money, you are convicted and then you are sentenced. It's a very detailed process. All right. So the Americans went through this process. When we come back, I'll show you the pool of people who our investigations have to look at and question their travel records, their bank details, to find out whether they are part of the people who benefited from these payments. All right. And we group them into 4. The officials who benefit from the bulk payment, the MPs and the officials in the power group who traveled, the presidential relative whose name is not mentioned, and then the co-conspirators who worked through these consulting companies to facilitate the bribery. Right? We'll show you some of these people and then read some of the responses they've had. This is the point of view. Tonight, before we get into any interview, we want to just be on the same page on how a Ghanaian American has been convicted of bribery of over $1 million to Ghanaian officials. Stay with us.
My line of work, a confident smile is everything. Kel Charcoal toothpaste keeps me on top of my game and ensures my smile is always radiant and bright.
With the tiring nature of my job, we spend several hours under the scorching sun. To keep our teeth white and our breath fresh all the time, we use none other than Kel Charcoal toothpaste. Kel Charcoal toothpaste. You're on a Kessie and in a kept one.
My can be neat. A who be here, some make us a papa dear to a mammy mouthful. Kel Charcoal's natural ingredients. And a bomb is simple buying. A man is swing, next time mamma hot so it will big you.
Kel Charcoal toothpaste. Choose Kel Charcoal toothpaste for anti-cavity, whiter teeth, and fresher breath. all day. Available in 80 gram and 150 gram. Grab yours today.
Kel, happy smile. This advert is FDA approved.
This shirt alone can command respect.
You haven't even checked the price.
Real men check quality first. Fear comes later.
Card, please. Wait.
What again?
Check the amount first. Madam, it's correct.
Please show it to us.
Hey!
25,000!
Oh, it's a mistake.
That's sister, why?
Oh,
am I buying the shop too?
It's a mistake. I'm sorry.
My spirit almost left my body just now.
Daddy, please check.
Good. I feel you do Mizima.
Network issue. Please give me the card so I'll go and check inside.
No, the card stays with him.
Always confirm the amount before tapping or entering your PIN, and never allow your card out of your sight. Spot the fraud. Stop the fraud.
This message is brought to you by the Ghana Association of Banks.
We are Hollard, your trusted insurance partner. We don't sell yogurt. We are not a country. We don't sell value. We do insurance. We secure your car, your home, your business, you and everyone you love with insurance that never leaves you uncovered. Hollard, we cover you.
Welcome back. So tonight the point of view is looking at the implications of the Asante Berko's conviction by an American court for corruption and bribery for amounts paid in and around 2015 to Ghanaian officials for the procurement of emergency power services to solve our doom. So now, very interesting to note that at the time, our energy sector had two main ministries. The energy ministry was in charge of petroleum. The power ministry was in charge of the power sector. Dr. Kwaku Berko was the minister at the time. So definitely, he has questions to answer from the investigators. Parliament was involved. You can't enter a power agreement for a nation or any agreement for a nation without the relevant committee. The relevant committee was the Mines and Energy Committee. So in 2015, at the time the bribes were supposedly paid and the travels facilitated. And by the way, the travel itself may not be an offense. There's nothing wrong with traveling. But if you were giving money illegally during the travel or receive payments illegally, then that's the issue, which our team has to prove. All these people have not yet been investigated by the Ghana side. So we are not saying these people have done anything wrong. And indeed, some have sent statements for us to read. Amadou Sogo Madina MP was chairman of the committee. His vice chair was Adam Mutawakil, MP for Damongo at the time. He's now the Ghana Water Company's CEO. Katie Amon was a ranking member, so the highest level opposition member in the relevant committee. His vice chair was MP for, I think, Obuasi East at the time, or ranking, deputy ranking, Enin. Claus Avoka was on the committee on the NDC side. Muntaka was on the committee on the NDC side. He's now he's Minister for Interior. And then there's also former sports minister on the MPP side, MP for, I think it's one of the Northeast constituencies. Then MNT, who died a few months ago, Nima MP, Gershon Bediame on the committee, Salif Amin on the committee, all these people on the committee. Now, the most critical name is Dr. Kwabena Donko. Let me read what his lawyers have put out. All right. So this is a statement by Cavendish Chambers, incidentally headed by Katie Hammond, who is the ranking member at the time. And it's just 10 paragraphs. So if you permit me, I'm going to read it. For immediate release, allegation of bribery in the U.S. case of Mr. Asante Berko. 1. We act on the instructions of our client, Dr. Konadonko, whose name has come to be associated with the above mentioned matters, and which are doing their rounds on various social media platforms. Our client instructs us in very crystal clear language that he has absolutely no knowledge about the allegations linked to him. He completely and emphatically denies any knowledge of a request or demand for any money as alleged. All right. Our client accepts that he was the relevant minister at the time material. This is a matter of public record, which we have also stated. Our client also admits that the state, through the then ministry, the Ministry of Power, negotiated with AKSA Energy for the generation of electric power in Ghana during the relevant period. This was at the time when the country was going through the worst phase of what came to be termed as doomsday. It was a time of extreme power emergency when the country experienced extreme load shedding. 5. He further instructs us that during the course of this negotiation, a technical team from all the electric power stakeholders in the country was sent to Istanbul, Turkey, to inspect the equipment which was to generate the required electricity in Ghana. This was and is the regular practice of pre-shipment inspection. Now, this is very important because he says it was a technical team. So we don't even know whether it was MPs. It was a technical team from all the electric power stakeholders in the country who was sent to Istanbul. I'm sure if the investigators from Ghana want more information, they can get the details. OSP can ask, give us the names of those who travel to inspect the equipment which was to generate required electricity in Ghana. This was and is regular practice. Paragraph 6. According to our client, at no point in the course of this negotiation did he once set eyes on the said Mr. Asante Berko, nor has he since. So this is paragraph 6. He says, at no point in time did I meet, and I have since not met. So I don't know him. I don't know him. Paragraph 7 is very, very important. In very plain language, our client states very strongly and unambiguously that 1, he has never met the said Asante Berko all his life. 2, he has never discussed any personal benefit of any value whatsoever with Mr. Asante Berko or any other person for that matter. 3, he has never authorized any person to discuss any such matters on his behalf. 4, he has never received any money in any denomination or any personal benefit of any value from Mr. Asante Berko and any other person. 6, any person or person who may have made such criminal demand in his name did so for their person or that person's own benefit. Number 8, our client does not understand that any evidence was laid in the U.S. trial which linked him with demanding or receiving money. Key point, demanding or receiving cedis or dollars or anything of value to him personally. Now, he does not accept that evidence that some other person or persons claim that they have required money from their principals for the benefit of senior officials in Ghana or at any other title holder metamorphosed into any evidence of criminality or wrongdoing against him. So 10, we are instructed to notify the general public accordingly and to state that any publication or statement of any kind which could be interpreted as contrary to the instruction clearly stated above and which seeks to impugn on the reputation and integrity of our client shall result immediately in legal proceedings. Signed by Katie Hammond, a lawyer, Cavendish Chambers. Okay, so let me wrap up with what Ghana has to do, right? So this is what Kwabena Donko is saying. Was the 370 megawatt emergency power agreement we signed with AKSA taken through our procurement law? Were the procurement processes kosher? Did Parliament do a good job? Because the person who led the project from the American side has admitted in court that he paid bribes to Ghanaian officials. Did Parliament do a good job? Was Parliament involved in the oversight? Did they do what they were supposed to do by law? I raised this point. Samuel Bekwin addressed beneficial ownership. The consulting company 1 and 2, we now know were shell companies created for the purpose of facilitating these payments. It's a big issue, beneficial ownership. We'll talk about that. And then can the investigative bodies begin to now remove the veil to say what amount of money entered your account in a relevant period? Where did they come from? Do you own assets that are beyond how much money you earn? These are very important points. Now, who is supposed to do this work? OSP clearly, because some of the people mentioned in or presumed to have been involved in the parliamentary oversight are current ministers. Indeed, the deputy AG at the time is now the substantive AG. So it makes sense for the OSP to be the one to investigate this. So if you needed any evidence that OSP is useful today. This case tells you that they are the best people, and indeed they even cooperated, because even though the Attorney General's deputy has written that they are investigating this, common sense dictates that you need an independent investigative body which has no executive connection. So OSP have the mandate to investigate and prosecute corruption involving public officials. Number two, EOCO, because an economic issue as well. EOCO has a big role to play here. They do asset tracing, financial investigation, unexplained wealth powers. They can get into people's account and ask you, where did this money come from? Then there's also the Mutual Assistance, Legal Assistance Act. We can ask the Americans for all the information they have to support our investigation so that we can say, this is what was said about you. Can you deny or confirm? The PPA, as I've said, the UN Convention Against Corruption. So what should we do? We need to request for the US record. Immediately, whether the OSP or Attorney General must request for the US record. Send us everything you have. We need to identify the named officials. The court documents don't mention the people. We have to say, from the population of 18 committee members, we think 2 of them were involved, or none of them, or all of them. We need to do that investigation to prove this. We need to open an independent investigation, whether EOCO and OSP together or jointly, to pursue that investigation, review procurement and ratification of the deal, and then asset recovery and conviction if that is important. Now, this is our conclusion, that the demand side has done its job. The supply side must do its job. When we come back, I'm going to speak to 2 people. Samuel Bequin is an energy analyst who's also working within the space of extractives. And we also have the head of ASEP, Ben Boache. What do these things mean for our energy sector, particularly because AKSA, after the 370 megawatts at Boone, they signed another agreement to provide power in Kumasi. And as I'm speaking to you, the Ministry of Finance has even said that there's another megawatt power plant in Takoradi that AKSA is going to build. So they have moved from emergency power to substantive power. Should we say, let's pause with APSA? Should we stop all our take or pay agreements and review them? Let's speak to our guests right away. So let me start with Samuel Bequin. Samuel, thanks for joining us, and of course, Ben Boache as well. Samuel, you are within the extractives. You are also into transparency. What are the implications of this conviction in the US for bribery, for the way our power sector is managed generally, and for the way we procure our power contracts specifically? Samuel.
Thank you, Bernard. I hope you can hear me
loud and clear.
Thank you. I think you mentioned some of the issues, but the key issue has exposed the fact that most times we, based on emergency, to undertake certain procurement that is really sometimes dangerous. And under that particular state of emergency, which the lawyers of the former minister has also mentioned that at the time the state needed power, it was under state of emergency. We let a lot of our good governance measures go away, and we may not have been strict in that particular power sector. What it means for us is that it shows that, first, you ask about Parliament, which is supposed to be the gatekeeper, did not play a very good gatekeeping role, and the conviction in the US has exposed it about some of the payments made to facilitate approval and selection of access power plant, which is the Pone power plant we have. In the other point, it shows that by then we had not fully implemented our beneficial ownership disclosure measures. But this is another opportunity with what we are seeing now, that it shows that we will have to implement certain clear anti-corruption rules, transparency rules within our power purchase agreement, and also our procedures leading to selecting a company to build our power plant as well, which is the procurement process. Ben will speak, but myself, with combining with Energy for Growth Hub, have been pushing for the transparency and publication of our power purchase agreements. For some reason, there have always been certain, exceptions as that says that, oh, there are sensitive information in that power purchase agreement. I have gotten some of the PPAs and looked through, and I don't see any sensitive information in there. So it's an opportunity for us to introduce these seriously And others too, we have to bring in and have a clear anti-corruption rule within the contract so that in case there is any investigation that finds any corruption in there, we will have the opportunity and the mandate to either cancel or end business with any company who may have engaged in bribery or corruption.
Let me come to Ben.
Another.
All right, you finish.
Another key issue is.
Go ahead.
Should we always wait for emergency? We definitely know the projections of our power sector. We know the growth of our power sector. Energy Commission does this job all the time, and we have all that particular data. But it's like we always wait till we will tell ourselves that, oh, we are not generating enough, we are not distributing enough, we don't have enough transformers. And then we enter into some of these pressure deals, in which in most cases, we do it under certificate of urgency. We do not allow the process to play out. We do not allow stakeholders to review the process. We do not allow transparency into the process because we say we really need these power plants in an emergency. And so that is what it means for us, the exposition of what we have been doing over the years and how we have allowed that certificate of urgency and emergency situation to undermine our transparency and governance measures or rules.
Thank you, Sam. I'll come back to you. Now, Mr. Boache, how critical is AKSA? Because we first heard of them in 2015, 370 megawatts emergency power. It seems to me they've become quite big in our power sector. How critical are they now, and what does this mean for our relationship with them going forward?
Thanks, Bernard. So AKSA is on its way to become one of the major IPPs. If you track their history in Ghana, they haven't been so critical. They gave us 370 megawatts. In actual supply, they were hovering around 330 megawatts or so. But even when you drill down to track how much power they have given to us, for the first 5 years that they operated, they delivered 16% of the expected, energy to the grid. So what that means is that all the money that we pay to them or contractually were obliged to pay to them, we only utilize them for 16%, 16% of the time. In most cases, there were excess requirement, or we didn't have fuel because they were using HFO to fuel it. So it was lying idle and we're paying for it. They put him up, I think, 250 megawatt in Kumasi, which is partially commissioned. There are some problems they have to resolve. Recently, there is a 900 megawatt PPA that has been signed. That has its own challenges. I'm not sure it's been consummated in full yet. If all of that were to crystallize, then we are headed to maybe 1,500, 1,600 megawatts of power cumulatively. So that is when they become much more dominant or bigger in the context. But as we speak now, in terms of power to the grid, they are not close to Asogli and others. Yes, because even the capacity that they have, they hardly put up 70% of that capacity.
Which is interesting. If the 370 was operating below 20%, why would the subsequent government give them another 250 in Kumasi, and then this government is thinking of doing 900 with them? I mean, you get my point. Should that not raise any red flags?
No, I think the power sector is growing, demand is growing. The projections are that even today, there are some level of, we are probably neck and neck with supply. So we need additional power plants to come in. So we have a couple of them coming up at this point, including, Senate also in Kumasi. The projection is that demand will still continue to grow. So ahead of that growth, some more power needs to be procured. And that's why I almost look like AKSA is the preferred, company to do it.
The 370 that they originally brought to us, we understand it was a take or pay arrangement, which is something you have analyzed extensively. Why is take or pay a problem? And should this scandal in the US lead us to go back and review that agreement with AKSA?
Take or pay for me has never been a problem. It's how we plan our systems to be able to use it. It's actually a risk mitigation tool to make sure that when people put in their money, they're able to recover the investment. So if you have planned your sector well, and you actually need the power, and then you will use the power, you're not worried about whether it's a take or pay or take and pay. Even in most cases where it's take and pay, there's some capacity that has to be paid at least to keep the investor afloat, even if you don't need them. So that is not a problem. The problem is that the power system hasn't been robust in terms of the value chain from generation to distribution, transmission to distribution, and then revenue collection at that last mile. So when you have excess power or there's a problem somewhere that we can't use the power and you still have to pay, then it becomes a problem. So our challenge as a country has been planning to make sure that the generation we actually sign up, we can actually use them. Coming to the question of what we do with AKSA at this point, I think it is so evident that you have such a scale of bribery and corruption, in our power system. Any sensible approach requires that you pause and investigate and look into it. So at this point, it's not just even the OSP, the Attorney General, even the Energy Ministry itself should be doing introspection. Unfortunately, you have a new minister who wasn't the minister at the time when this corruption happened. Should now look back and say, can we look at these agreements? We have recently been struggling to even engage these IPPs to give us significant haircut that keeps the sector afloat. So this is, for me, a major opportunity to go back and look at how these contracts could have been optimized. We have had no doubt in our minds since 2015, and you track all the writings, all the publications we've done on some of these IPPs. We have always been worried about how these contracts were signed, and we knew something was wrong, but we couldn't, figure out that it was just mere 1 million, 5,000, 20,000 that could make people, sacrifice national duty, to undermine our collective purpose and duty, interest at that scale, right? If you look at how these IPPs were contracted, and we'll talk about emergency and everything. Emergency requires emergency solutions, and it requires emergency approach in procurement. But it doesn't mean that you should pay 10, 20 times what you should pay, even if it's an emergency power plant, right? It is emergency. That is why we went up on the shelf power plants. What that means is that you went for used, probably abandoned power plants because you didn't have time to go to a manufacturer for the manufacturer to manufacture new power plants for you, which will be more efficient, less fuel consuming, and less maintenance. We went for used plants, and AKSA was one of the worst of the power plants that came in. You have some of the power plants 15, 20-year-old, and we deployed them into Ghana. So those are opportunities to make sure that the rate that you are paying for those spent plants were the lowest you could actually get in the industry. And yet we managed to balloon the tariff that we're paying to these IPPs. And you track it. And what is even astonishing is that you have these agencies where, well, as we are seeing in the judgment, PURC, great on how these things are done, and also technical appraisal, just taking $5,000, $2,000 and signing off without doing the technical job that they're actually supposed to do. And I tell you what, Bernard, PURC knew when this AKSA contract was being signed that AKSA went mobilizing these power plants, and the prices were known. Some 1 million, 1.2, 1.8 million. They put them together. Cumulatively, you are not doing more than $30 million for that power plant.
So clearly, they should have known.
Go on to pay for 5 years.
They ought to have known that this was overvalued.
So for me, these are the matters that we need to be investigating at this point. Now go down to the basics. Where did they get the power plant from? How much were they on the shelves for sale? And how could they sell those power plants or buy them, bring them here? They didn't even sell to us. They were only going to generate power for 5 years and keep their plants.
All right.
And then take $720 million from us.
Let me take Samuel Bequin on this. So, Samuel, are you also of the view that any further relationship with AKSA must be paused and that we go back to the 2015 agreement and do some work there, Mr. Bequin?
I agree to some extent that, yes, we have to take some retrospect investigation and say, what can we do to ensure that going forward, this will not happen? However, my understanding, and Ben can correct me, is that the current 900 megawatt agreement we have with them, I understand that that may be one of the most efficient or cheaper option that we have now secured. The question is, how did AKSA get in? We've noticed this bribery scandal. But since they got in, is it that they have, done their home job and then now they are doing things the right way by giving us a more cost-effective power that they are going to produce? I think that too should be taken into consideration as well. But for me, I think reforming the entire process of doing things should be the way forward. The lack of competition that we introduce under certificate of emergency or during emergency, we should, if we are going to declare something under emergency, as Ben said, it should be extremely transparent. It should follow extremely transparent processes because we are doing it under emergency. It should follow that particular processes so that we can say to ourselves that though we did it under emergency, we've made sure that whoever we are working with has actually done what is right or what is required of that particular contractor. And then we know who we are doing business with. What Ben is saying is very straightforward. Most of the power plants are power plants that have been used before, and then they pick and pack it off the shelf and then come and give it to us, repackage it here, paint it, and then produce the power for us. And so we will be able to go back and look at how much it costs even in where they pick up the power plant from and understand why the prices are really high. And this is one of the reasons why we've been pushing for the fact that agreement between power plants and the government, the IPPs and the government should be published. That should be the first stage. We should publish all the agreement so that we know exactly how much have been agreed between these power plants and how much we are paying per kilowatt hours of power that they generate. It's really important. That is one. Also, going forward, I think we have to ensure that if you look at the story, a lot of shell companies, multiple local intermediaries were utilized to pay some of or facilitate some of these bribes. And that speaks to the fact that we need to understand any related party companies, any shell company that are related to the deal, who are behind those shell companies, and why we are paying monies to those shell companies, or the contractor is paying monies to some of these companies as well. And that is where we come in with the fact that we need to ensure there is full disclosure of beneficial ownership information and any related party information that any company that we deal with will have to disclose as well going forward. If you look at this, the question is, for me, I have been asking myself, now we've agreed the 900 megawatts. Is this something that we stop and go back and find another one because we've signed an agreement with them? Or we do investigation and look at how best can we improve the way they do things so that we don't repeat some of these facilitations and bribery that has gone on as well. I think it's really important. And that is all for the future, what we do to ensure that there is no bribery that we are going to experience like what the US has actually investigated and convicted Mr. Berko for. I think going forward, Ben, I think we should be ensuring that parliament committees are no more just going to review and approve, but they should do the work as a gatekeeper and ensure they also allow external people to also come in to review some of these deals. But the best thing is for us to publish every information, including the procedures and the contracts that we have with IPPs. I'm pushing for this, and I think it is the right thing to do.
Thank you, Samuel Bequin and Ben Boakye. Samuel is an energy analyst, and Ben Boakye is also with the Africa Center for Energy Policy. We've been looking at Asante Kwaku Berko, the AKSA bribes, and the future of Ghana's power sector. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.